Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique Jaramillo, your astrologer and host. I believe astrology can fast-track personal growth, improve relationships, and empower parents. On this show, I will bring you practical guidance and insight from my own work, studies, and life experiences, as well as interview experts to bring you stellar wisdom from other teachers and professionals to inspire you on your journey. I'm so glad you're here and thanks for tuning in. So sit back, enjoy the show, and be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to catch every new episode as soon as it drops. Your shares and reviews are also much appreciated to help more people benefit from nurturing astrology. Okay, let's dive into today's show. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique, your astrologer and host. And today I have a very special guest I'm excited to chat with today. That's Danielle from Little Mystic School. To tell you a little bit about her, Danielle is a dedicated mother, writer, and astrologer, and teacher with a lifelong passion for healing and transformation. Her journey in spiritual well-being spans over 15 years, during which she has studied with remarkable mentors and earned certifications in yoga, prenatal yoga, meditation, Reiki, and astrology. As a creative force, Danielle has authored 3 books, contributed to various publications, and developed online courses that bridge the gap between mystical wisdom and everyday life. She has also collaborated with inspiring educators, students, enriching her mission to make spirituality accessible and meaningful. Danielle's greatest joy lies in sharing these transformative tools with children and their caregivers, empowering them to live lives filled with joy, connection, and a sense of wonder. I'm so excited to chat with Danielle. Let's bring her in. Okay, hi Danielle, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Me too, me too. We were chatting a little bit behind the scenes before we got started, and I definitely, even though we're just meeting, I feel like there's, soul sisters happening or little sisters.
Yes,
connection.
sisters, exactly.
Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited to get to know you more and to introduce you more to my community. So I know a little bit about you, but why don't you share with us first, like your story, a little bit about yourself, your family, and how you came to astrology, and specifically astrology for helping children and parents.
I would love to. And I'm so honored to be here with you. And I'm really excited to get to know your community. So I have been studying astrology since I was a teenager. So I'm 45 now, so it's been a long time. And the reason why I first started studying astrology was because I had a really challenging childhood. I had a lovely family who did the best that they could, but I was a young mystic from a very young age, and I felt very, very different from other people. And I had a hard time communicating a lot of my deep emotions and thoughts. And so, I'm a Scorpio rising, and I've got Mercury conjunct Uranus in the first house. So there was just I had a tremendous amount of difficulty articulating my thoughts and who I really was in the world. And it caused a lot of problems for me and my classmates. And so I was frequently bullied. And I had a really hard time connecting with my family when I was younger. And it caused a lot of issues for me. And in high school, how I came to astrology was, I was, like I mentioned, bullied often, and that led me to, skipping classes a lot and performing really poorly in school. And I was just very, very lost for quite a long time. And at some point, someone bought me, I believe it was the birthday book, that book where like every single day of the year, there's like a little description about your personality. And I turned open to October 16th. And I read about myself. And it was the first time where I read a description about myself that felt true to who I was, not the projections of other people, the cruel things that people said to me. This to me felt like this is who I am. This is who I could be. So I fell in love with astrology. And, my first introduction to astrology was through the through sun sign astrology. So I have a lot of love for just that, that part of astrology because it could be really helpful for people when they're first learning about it.
For
And
sure.
I played around with it throughout my 20s, and into my 30s. In my 20s, my struggles really continued because, again, I just felt very different from other people. I felt isolated. And as you get older, if you're unclear about who you are, oftentimes you can make really poor life choices. And I made really poor life choices that led to a dark night of my soul when I was about 25 years old. And that's when I really began my healing journey. So astrology was always there as sort of like an anchor. It was my first healing tool that I just fell in love with, but I didn't really know much about it. And then when I began my healing journey, I started, going to therapy and also pursuing a career in yoga. So I got a yoga certification in my late 20s, and I began teaching yoga full time. And through teaching yoga, I got a bunch of other certifications in Reiki and energy healing, other different modalities. And then when I was 35 years old, I got certified to become an astrologer because that was something that I always wanted to do. And my 300-hour yoga teacher was a professional astrologer running a certification. So I went through her certification program. So once I got certified in astrology, which was, yeah, about 10 years ago, I started giving readings. And at the same time, what happened was, I was teaching yoga full time, but I was just teaching to adults in studios. And about 10 years ago was when I really started to notice in the United States, there was a major problem with school shootings. It's a bummer of a topic, but it really, really
Mhm.
hit me in the heart because of all of my very, very difficult experiences in high school. It's just something that was like a big core wound of mine. And something inside me, I believe it was Parkland, it was that incident in Florida that woke me up and made me say, I need to work with kids. I need to bring these tools to children so that kids don't have to suffer the way that I suffered in school. And so I created a company called Awake Yoga and Meditation, which no longer exists. But I reached out to, at the time I was living in New York, I reached out to a ton of schools in New York. And I sort of became known for bringing mindfulness, meditation, and yoga into these school spaces and teaching educators how to implement these techniques
I love
into
it.
their classroom. So this was really my foray into working with kids. I was never able to bring astrology to schools because there's so much red tape and you just can't do
Right.
that, you know?
Yep,
But that
sure.
was but that was like always sort of like a little seed in the back of my mind. And what happened was in 2020, when the pandemic hit, all of New York was basically shut down, all the yoga studios, 100% of them. And I had just become pregnant. I was about 6 months pregnant. And so I retired from being a yoga teacher. And I was just filled with anxiety and, grief that my career was, stalled and all this time for nothing. So I started writing to just do something with my thoughts. And as I was writing, I started creating books. I created my first book, which is Summer's School Day Scaries. It's a story about a young girl who wakes up on her first day of school and she's filled with fear. So her little imaginary friend, Buggy the Snuggie, teaches her a mindfulness breathing technique to overcome anxiety. So I wrote that book. And then I started writing another book called Lunar Lessons for the Little Astrologer, which is a book that teaches kids and parents how to have a relationship with the new and the full moon, how to have a relationship with the moon through new and full moon rituals.
I love
And
it.
through creating this, one day out of the blue, I woke up and I was like, I want to create. This is when the online business started to really
Yeah.
become huge, was during the pandemic. I was
Mhm.
like, I want to create a business. I'm thinking something like for mystics, little mystics. And then I was like, it's little mystic school. And I wanted to do like a Hogwarts for
Oh,
kids and for
nice.
parents. And so that in early 2021 was when I opened up Little Mystic School. And it has gone through tremendous ups and downs and evolved into this beautiful creation and community. And that's my story.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love the inspiration too. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to that, a story, and finding astrology and finding themselves, where they don't feel like they fit, that's one of the things I love about astrology. And yeah, what a beautiful story. I remember thinking that too. There's a lot of the school shootings was very, very traumatizing and fear-inducing for parents. So I love that you bring astrology to children. I think that that's really great. I know our work as astrologers for helping parents is about the parents, but there is something really valuable to teaching children a little bit about themselves through this lens that allows them to embrace themselves and have, I think it creates more compassion for others too. Having those little conversations about, without even using the astrology language about we're all different. We have different ways of, thinking and feeling. And, I know your daughter, you have a daughter, right?
Yeah, 4-year-old daughter.
Or yeah, so she's young, right? So I'm sure that as she gets older, you'll be able to have more and more conversations with her because I know I did. My son's 13. And
Oh,
so I know I'm a teenager. Um, but I definitely had those conversations and taught those little things to him about himself without using the language. And I think that's a really kind of powerful thing for parents to have by understanding
yeah,
their children from that perspective, and more so how they're different from us, so that we're, raising them as they best, need support rather than maybe what we think we should do or what society is telling us we should do.
yeah.
Um, and I think, I empathize, with that feeling like you don't fit, as an Aquarius, like wanting to fit in, not fitting in. So having to embrace that, right? Um, so what a beautiful story, and I love where it brought you, and I love the Little Mystic School. I love the rituals, and I think that's why I invited you into the parenting group, and I would love for you to feel free to share any of those little rituals that you would do with kids in the group anytime, because I think that would be really fun to bring that element to the group. So I welcome you to, to do that. If you want to contribute any of that insight to the group, I think they would really love that. It'd be a nice addition.
I would
Um,
love that.
so yeah, definitely do that. So when you're doing children's charts, now you're doing those for parents, right? Not
Mhm.
directly the children.
Yeah.
So there's obviously like lots of ethical considerations when we're doing children's charts. So what approach do you take to analyzing children's charts, either, for the parents or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so this is a really important discussion that, definitely needs to be addressed. So I always consider the idea that children can't give you consent to have their charts analyzed. So it's so important to respect their privacy. So a few different things, come to mind. So because children can't give their consent, especially younger kids, when they're a teenager, I think it's a good idea for parents to say to their kids, hey, how do you feel about me having your chart read with an astrologer, just so that, this astrologer can help me support you better. So
Mhm.
I think that's important. When they're younger, they're not going to know what you're talking about.
Right.
So as an astrologer, it's so important for me to use this information responsibly. And so what I do is I really avoid determinism. I really avoid deterministic language. So I avoid labeling a child or predicting their future.
Amen.
Occasionally, if a parent is struggling, with their child, I will read their child's transit chart just to see what's going on, especially around their first Saturn square, like 6 or 7 years old, or Saturn opposition, which should be around your son's
Yeah.
age-ish, right?
Yep.
Um, but for the most part, I avoid transit talk with parents just because I feel like um, it could take the parents out of being able to be present with their child and subconsciously make them feel like they can control their child's life. And we just want to avoid that at all, because astrology is proof that free will exists.
Yeah.
Astrology is meant to show you all the possibilities, not fixed outcomes. So that's the main thing that I really focus on when I am reading a child's birth chart, is to make sure that I honor the fact that they really can't give consent. And then, just as like a side note, um, in groups of people, like in Facebook groups or on Instagram, on social media, I personally avoid uploading my child's chart
Mhm.
and asking for specific advice, because oftentimes people are so well intentioned, but they could, possibly label your child as like, so if you're a Scorpio rising, ooh,
Right.
like you're really dark and your child is very deep, dark and mysterious, like you could unintentionally label them. Um, and you just want to be careful about that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a slippery slope, and it is a
Yeah.
delicate thing. I really I struggle with it as well, because when I had my son, I felt like it was okay, this is almost going to be a little bit of an experiment, right? To see if this knowledge and how it can help me. But that was the biggest thing. You don't want to label, you don't want to project, and I think when doing children's charts, that's why, if you have an issue with your child, they're just being a child. You have to look to why you're having that concern or that issue for yourself. What are your own fears or concerns, that kind of thing. So I do think bringing it back to us is a good way of avoiding some of that. Um, but I totally agree that it is tough and challenging when you put things out there and people are well intentioned. And that's why in my group, it is a private group. This is very private. I don't have it open to the public. I have really hard and fast rules about how we approach, a chart if you're going to put it in there. And that's why, like, the larger a group gets, the more you have to have kind of like some parameters around that to ensure it. But yeah, I totally agree. It's a slippery slope. But at the same time, you and I both know, as moms who know astrology and know our children's charts, the invaluable insight that comes from that. And asking yourself, like, if your family understood you through that lens as a child, could it have made a difference in your experience and in the environment they created for you to flourish and grow, right? And so that's where my heart goes. This information is power. It's what you do with it, right? And so I do feel like it's still really valuable information for parents to know. And it takes real ethical and responsible astrologers to help support parents with this tool. And that's why I like connecting with people like yourself and trying to meet more people and bring more, astrologers together that are of this, this feeling, because I think parents are looking. And so if they're looking, they need to have real reliable sources and, ethical astrologers they can go to, for the information. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, so I think that I understand the concern, but I think that for me, this healing tool has been, without it, I would not be who I am today. It has single-handedly completely changed my life,
mhm,
changed my ability to show up in the world as who I want to be. It's helped me to heal from a lifetime of trauma. And
mhm,
as a parent, I notice when actually really use astrology. Right now, it's sort of like second nature. I
Yeah.
don't think about astrology all the time. I'm off doing my own life. But when I really use the tool to help me parent, especially her moon sign, her Mercury, the way that she learns and communicates,
Mhm.
it helps us strengthen our relationship so much more. And she feels so much safer with me. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. It's totally invaluable.
And that was going to be my next question. Are there like approaches or key places in the chart that you will go to every time for a parent about the child to create that? And I mean, obviously, Moon and Mercury are key, right? Even though the
Yeah.
sun is our, sun sign astrology is really wonderful, but I don't know about you, but I kind of learned that the sun was who we're becoming. It's like the journey of becoming.
Yes.
And so it's an essence, it's this broad essence of a personality, but really we know we live in our moon for always, mostly, right? Instinctively,
Yeah.
but as children, more so always. And then the Mercury. So I do feel like those, you just hit on two things that I think are extremely important, if nothing else, in a chart for a child.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially, when I approach a session and I know I'm going to be reading for a parent who has I look at the child's developmental stage. So
Excellent.
that's really like when I'm working with a child, a parent who has a child, that's what I first look at is how old is that child? So if
Yeah.
they're a younger child, the things that I'm going to focus on the most are their moon placement and obviously any aspects related to their moon, their
Yeah.
Mercury, and their Venus. Their moon represents their emotional needs, how they feel safe and secure with you, their relationship with their mother or mother figure. Mercury is how they communicate and process information and their experience in their primary school years as well. And then
Mhm.
Venus is, their love language. It's how they relate, it's how they develop their self worth as well. So, those are the three planets that I'll spend a large amount of time on for much younger children. And then as they get older, older kids and preteens and teens, I'll start to focus on their sun, which represents their growing and developing identity.
Yep.
Um, I'll focus on their north node, which is where how their soul wants to grow. It's their life purpose.
Mhm.
And then I'll start to really also focus on more challenging aspects, Saturn and Chiron. What can we do about that? I'll touch on it a little bit when a child is younger, just to give a parent tools as to how to work with their Chiron placement or their Saturn placement. But yeah, I really do focus on the child's age and what they need at this moment.
Oh, so good. I totally agree. Like we were talking before, child development to me is just necessary part of it.
Yeah.
And the idea of, the Mars return, which happens every 2 years, is very much part of the
Yes.
learning and growth cycle, right? So
Hmm.
there's these cycles that we all go through, that Saturn square, the Saturn opposition of 14, we all gone through those and we all will go through them at, those various stages. And so understanding where they're at and then their development is so key. And I do think there are like just little pieces that you can give a parent that can make huge differences without projecting the future, without, labeling. So I do think it can be done. And it sounds like you're doing an excellent job at it.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Thank you, thank you. So now you do these, you have this great book about the lunar phases, and you do these little rituals. You teach parents about how to do rituals with kids. Have you found that there are a lot of parents that come to you that like, my kids want to know about this, or that have really loved bringing astrology to their children?
Mostly younger kids. Younger kids, from uh, really it's about 4 years old, late threes, 4 years old, to about 10 years old. They're really open to the world of mysticism. They love it. There's some
Mhm.
teenagers who really are into it and who really love it. Those are probably just natural born mystics.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, when you introduce astrology in a very simple way, I would always suggest, when you're introducing astrology to kids. Keep it light and simple and so fun. Keep any of the heaviness or the seriousness out of it. Like nobody needs that. We're trying to make our families connect and bring joy into our family life, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, doing these new and full moon rituals is such a wonderful way to create a family tradition and to start to understand how the moon can impact us, how to live seasonally. And then just, teaching your kid about their sun sign. Like, well, my daughter, she personally knows her sun and her moon. She knows that she also has a Virgo moon like I do. So we bond over that. And okay, this is going to make me sound like a kook, but our dog has a Virgo moon.
Nice. That's
So
right. I have
she's
a
like,
Scorpio dog.
she's like, she's like, me, you, and Teddy all have Virgo moon. Mommy, is the moon in our sign? So she
Oh,
loves it. And she's like, I'm Leo the lion. Rare, so she
yes.
loves learning about these different characters, about, her daddy who is a Pisces, a fish, you
Hmm.
know. She
Yeah.
doesn't understand the scale. She's like, you're a scale? Okay. You know,
Funny.
but we have a lot of fun with it, and it's just a way for us to create new, meaningful traditions with one another. And that's really what I would suggest with parents who want to introduce them to their kids to astrology. It's really a beautiful thing to do, and I would always start with working with, the element that of the current season. So right now, it's Sagittarius season. So working with the fire element, even just through cooking, spices and stuff like that. You don't have to light fires if that's what you're concerned about. Keep it simple and fun. Let's start having fun with it all.
Absolutely. Oh, I can see your Virgo moon like loving that. I mean, such
Yes.
cool ideas. That's like right up your alley. I love that, and so fun for the kids. And they are open. I think it's a keeping it simple, keeping it fun, and bringing it into nature. I mean, that's why I'm like nurturing astrology is like our nature, and relating things to nature.
Yeah.
Is huge and so helpful. Yeah, and you said you have, I will say too, you have a great free download about this in terms of making those rituals, some of those rituals
Yeah.
for children. So I'll put that in the show notes too if you want to link to that.
Yeah.
That was a really cool thing to get you started with those kinds of rituals with your kids. And then you
Yeah.
just released a coloring book, I think, which I
It's
love that idea.
gorgeous. You have to check it out if you are watching this and you want to introduce your kids to astrology or even mysticism, because it has all 12 of the zodiac signs, but also has mystical characters like unicorns and fairies and phoenixes in there. It's such a fun way. It's a beautiful coloring book. And yeah, it's on sale right now also for the holiday season.
Oh, nice. That'd be a fun thing. I don't know about you, but I love to color. I used to
Me
love
too.
to color with my son. I'd be like, let's color because mommy likes to color. I remember when adult coloring books came out and they were so popular. I was like, ooh, I
I
have one
do.
all mandalas and stuff. It's so
Yes.
meditative as well. So thanks for Mercury retrograde reminding me how much I like to color. Maybe I should get the book for myself.
I do it with my daughter, who she's actually the one who inspired me because she's like a little artist. So I was like, that's what I'm going to create.
So did you draw that? Are you
No,
working on one?
actually being able to draw, that's not really my forte, but no, I created the idea and the layout, and then I hired a wonderful illustrator to draw all the illustrations.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I'll definitely put those links in the show notes as well, too. Um, so what do you think, like, currently what we're navigating, like the greatest value of astrology for parenting currently, like during the world we're in right now, the fast pace, the
Yeah.
stressful, ness that we're all under as parents and families, or are there anything happening? Like, what would your advice be right now, given the energies to moms, who love astrology and or parents, not just moms. I just happen to work with mostly moms. Or is there anything particular you're looking at now? I know we talked a little bit before about like the Pluto and Aquarius and like that energy. So any thoughts on like what's happening now and how to support families through what's the energies of today and what's ahead of us the unknown that's ahead.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot because we're moving towards a really intense, and this is not to scare anyone, but it's going to be a really intense year as far as the astrology is concerned. 2025 has a lot going on. We have all the outer planets changing signs and the social planets as well. And that's a really big deal. I mean, already Pluto moved into Aquarius, which is life-changing. It's going to define an entire generation. So I want to start off by saying that, first off, this is a transit that is going to that has the possibility to help you um, prioritize developing a community that works with your unique needs, a community that you really want to be a part of. Okay, that is really like the I would think the high side of this Pluto in Aquarius transit is strengthening community.
Yeah.
So start to really prioritize that. If a lot of us in this modern day and age, I'll just speak for myself, can oftentimes feel lonely and isolated. And the way
Mm.
that we connect with people is through the screens. And I just want to say, like, this to me is really soul nourishing. And this is the new world that we live in. So don't be afraid to find your community, even if it's across the world, through the screens, through joining groups that you align with. And
Yeah.
another thing, social media is going to continue to grow, but Pluto actually makes things smaller. So I do think there's going to be some resistance to all of the social media and all of the toxicity that comes with social media. As much as there's beautiful stuff, there's a tremendous amount of toxicity. So I think there's going to be a lot of pushback to that. So
Mhm.
finding your little small group and, you know, investing in them, investing your energy in them, showing up for them is going to be really helpful for you as we start to navigate some very intense collective changing energy.
Yeah.
Uranus in moving into Gemini, that's something I'm really keeping my eye on, especially with regards to families and kids, because I believe it's going to shake up the entire school system, especially in the United States here where I live. Um,
Yep.
so, you know, I think all of this change is an invitation to slow down a little bit and be more present because there's so much moving so fast.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some balance. Astrology is a few different things, and one of them, to me at least, is it's a clock that helps you have a relationship with the seasons. And everything, we talked about this a little bit before our podcast, everything moves in cycles and nature needs balance. So maybe the onus is on us to start to slow down a little bit and live more mindfully and be more present with our family and more intentional can't speak,
Yeah.
intentional about the way that we want to live. And these transits, if you want to learn more about them, I encourage you to do so, but through the lens of, you know, what is possible for you. Let go of any of the fear mongering that you hear. There's a lot of possibilities. And there's going to be a new way for us to create the life and the lives that we want to create.
I totally agree. Yeah. And those are such great tips. I like what you said about Pluto making things smaller. Like Pluto's that small but powerful planet, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I totally agree with the intimacy, of Pluto and groups. And thank you, because it validated my feeling and desire to create smaller groups, like creating my mom's meetup in person like this monthly outside of a larger social media group so that I can connect with people who really want that same connection and to work together and invest in that community of moms and astrologers and people so that we can really support each other through those times. And in the group, we talk about what we can do for self-care, but then also what we can do for our families and what we can
Yeah.
do for our kids to create that balance and, to pull away from and into And I love the idea of slowing down because I do feel like part of the shifting is going to be such high pace and so many changes so quickly. There's also a lot to be excited about in terms of the future and how the change in education system needs to happen. There's a lot of things that good that can come from it. Um, and another thing that I'm doing that I'm really happy you agreed to be a part of is the summit. I'm going to be doing my first Empowered Parenting with Astrology Summit in the new year. And I think that's another way to build a group and to support and help give more tools to parents, but also to pull in and hopefully create more of a group of astrologers who find this work as valuable and as important as we do for the future, right? We're talking about future generations here, raising future generations, which we're doing through this chaotic world we're living, changing, constantly changing world. And how do we best prepare our children and give them the best to live their lives and keep them hopeful during times, and and feeling supported in their unique growth during times of unsettle and change and all of that. I feel like it's going to be really important and valuable. And there are a million tools that can help, but my passion for astrology and to me shows that that's one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Definitely one of them. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, I think that you're right about this too, is there is something that is still very intimate about this than posting something in a group where you're not talking to anyone there. You're just putting it out there and hopefully the algorithm allows somebody to see it, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
some value out of it. And it's like, but if I get into a group and we have a conversation, that's why I love client work, and being one-on-one and be able to really help and work with someone, but also I'm an Aquarius. I like to create those groups and friendships where I can connect with other people. So those were all very validating for me and how I feel.
Yay.
So like, okay, I'm on the right track. You
You
think you
are
are.
on the right path. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
So yeah, so I'm definitely like really excited. And I think that there was a lot of yeah, a lot of uncertain change, new territories we're going to be walking through that we just don't know. So it's going to be really important to stay vigilant with our family, slow down when needing. I think those mindful breath, you know, things, mindfulness practices and breath, practices and quick meditations and all of that are going to be really, really helpful for stabilizing the nervous system, when there's so much going on. And yeah, such good stuff. I feel like you and I could probably talk for like hours, but I know we're on a little bit of a time thing. So, is there any other piece of advice or insight you'd like to leave us with before we go? And yeah, you'll be seeing more of Danielle. Stay tuned for the summit as well. More information about that to come. But what other pearls of wisdom would you like to leave us with today?
I think I would just like to touch on that. Oftentimes, parents, when they are curious about reading their child's chart, they also are working with some fear
Oh,
around, having their child's chart read or if there's a difficult placement. And so I just want you, whoever is watching this, to know that, when you are working with an ethical astrologer, and there's so many of us out there, we are going to always, when it comes to the more challenging placements, because as a human, you're always going to have like a challenging placement to work with, whether it's Chiron or Saturn. We're always going to provide you with possibilities and show you ways in which you can support your child so that it, ends up being something that they can turn into a gift, and it ends up being not so challenging. So there really isn't much to fear. Astrology, I say this all the time, it's not fortune telling. And I personally find that, especially, tropical astrology, which is what I study, is such an amazing tool to help you accept your child, be empathetic to their needs, and really support what they need and help them feel safe with you so that you walk away from your session feeling so connected to your child and really feeling like your family is stronger. Because really, the work of astrology when working with families It's to help heal generational wounds, and it's incredibly powerful in being able to do that. So I just wanted to share that. If you are curious about it, I say jump right in and reach out to one of us.
My gosh, so perfect. So true. So true. I mean, we end up dispelling fears first and foremost, but I love the invitation and it's true. That is my goal, is to always shift the perspective of a challenging placement or aspect, to know that it is also a gift and here to provide them something wonderful and an opportunity for both of you to grow and evolve. It doesn't have to be scary, and it doesn't have to be something to fear. So again, beautiful pearl of wisdom there. And I definitely encourage anyone that's interested in working with Danielle to reach out to her. I will have all of her links in the show notes below to all her great products and sales going on and links. And stay tuned for more. I have this feeling that Danielle and I will be working together more in the future.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Danielle, for joining me today, and we'll definitely talk soon. Hi. Thanks for listening, and I hope you gained some great astrology insight and inspiration from today's show. I'd love to hear, so drop me a comment or share in a review. Check out the show notes for all the details and links about today's episode, how you can connect with me on social or work with me directly. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Oh, and for my moms out there, be sure to join my private Conscious Parenting with Astrology Moms group on Facebook. Come join a growing community of like-minded mamas supporting each other in the hardest job in the world with the help of astrology. Hope to see you over there. Take care and keep nurturing the nature, friends. I'll see you on the next episode.